Glenn Hughes was born on August 21, 1951 in Cannock, Staffordshire, England. Growing up in a small town, he was surrounded by music from a young age. His parents noticed his natural gift for singing, and by his teenage years he was already playing bass and performing with local bands. Hughes admired Motown, soul singers like Stevie Wonder, and classic rock artists. This mix of influences shaped his powerful voice and unique style. In the late 1960s, Glenn formed bands like Finders Keepers, where he built his confidence as a performer. His blend of rock and soul made him stand out from other young musicians. What set him apart wasn't just his ability to sing, it was the way he poured emotion into every note. Fans in Cannock started calling him The Voice, long before the rest of the world caught on. By 1969, Glenn Hughes joined Trapeze, a band that gave him his first taste of serious success. Alongside Mel Galley on guitar and Dave Holland on drums, the trio created a sound that blended funk, hard rock, and soul. Their album, Medusa, 1970, became a cult favorite, showing Hughes' incredible vocal range. Glenn didn't just sing, he played bass with thunderous energy, proving he was a true double threat. In America, Trapeze built a loyal following, especially in Texas, where fans adored their high-energy shows. Hughes became known for his stage presence, moving effortlessly between gritty rock power and silky smooth soul. Though Trapeze never became as big as Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple, they influenced many musicians. Even years later, bands would point to Trapeze as a hidden gem of the early 1970s. For Glenn, Trapeze was more than a stepping stone. It was where he learned how to lead a band and trust his instincts as a performer. In 1973, Glenn Hughes' life changed forever. After Deep Purple's bassist Roger Glover and singer Ian Gillan left, the band searched for new blows. They approached Hughes to play bass. Glenn agreed, but insisted he also wanted to sing. Around the same time, the band discovered a young singer named David Coverdale. Instead of choosing one, Deep Purple decided to keep both. Hughes and Coverdale shared vocals, creating a fresh dynamic for the legendary band. Glenn's soulful voice added a new dimension, while Coverdale's bluesy tone complemented it perfectly. Together, they powered Deep Purple through a new chapter, often called the Mark III era. For Glenn, it was a dream come true. He was now part of one of the biggest rock bands in the world. But with fame came new challenges, and his time in Deep Purple would be both thrilling and chaotic. Deep Purple's first album with Glenn Hughes and David Coverdale was Burn, 1974. It was a roaring success. The title track became a hard rock classic, with Glenn's soaring high notes and funky bass lines pushing the music into new territory. Songs like Might Just Take Your Life and You Fool No One showcased his ability to mix soul and rock like no one else. On stage, Hughes was a force of nature. His voice seemed limitless. Fans and critics praised his energy and charisma. However, behind the scenes, the band was already feeling tensions. Ritchie Blackmore, the band's guitarist, wasn't happy with the funk influences Glenn was bringing in. Still, Burn proved that Deep Purple could survive lineup changes and still dominate the rock world. For Glenn Hughes, it was the album that made him an international star, but it also marked the beginning of conflicts that would haunt the band. In late 1974, Deep Purple released Stormbringer. The album leaned even more into funk and soul thanks to Glenn Hughes' influence. Songs like Love Don't Mean a Thing and Hold On showed his passion for blending genres. But guitarist Ritchie Blackmore hated this direction. He wanted the band to stay heavy and hard-hitting, while Hughes wanted groove and melody. The clash of visions created tension inside the group. On stage, Glenn and David Coverdale delivered stunning vocal performances, but backstage, arguments grew louder. By 1975, Blackmore decided he had enough and left the band to form Rainbow. For Hughes, this was a painful moment. He had joined Purple at their peak, but now the cracks were visible. Still, he believed music had to grow and change. His confidence in mixing rock with funk would become both his greatest strength and a source of controversy throughout his career. As Deep Purple continued with guitarist Tommy Bolin replacing Blackmore, things got messy. The 1975 album Come Taste the Band had some great songs, but the band was falling apart. Glenn Hughes and Tommy Bolin both struggled with heavy drug use. Cocaine became a daily part of Hughes' life, clouding his judgment and damaging his relationships. On stage, his voice was still powerful, but behind the scenes, he was losing control. The once mighty Deep Purple ended up collapsing in 1976. For Hughes, it was devastating. He had reached the top of the rock world only to see it crumble under the weight of excess. Years later, he admitted that drugs almost destroyed him. But even in the darkest times, his talent never disappeared. Fans still believed in the voice of rock, even when Glenn himself doubted his future. After Deep Purple's split, Glenn Hughes tried to reinvent himself. He worked with various artists, lending his voice and bass skills to different projects. In 1977, he teamed up with guitarist Pat Thrall for the album Hughes Thrall. The record mixed rock, funk, and pop, showing Glenn's versatility. Critics loved it, but sales were disappointing. Still, songs like I Got Your Number proved Hughes was more than just a former Deep Purple member. He was a unique artist in his own right. Throughout the late 70s and 80s, Glenn became known as a singer's singer, admired by musicians worldwide. But his personal life was still chaotic, and drugs often stood in the way of long-term success. Even so, Hughes' reputation as one of rock's greatest voices continued to grow. He was on a rocky path, but his story was far from over. In 1985, Glenn Hughes got an unexpected call. Tony Iommi, guitarist of Black Sabbath, wanted him to sing on a new project. The result was Seventh Star, originally meant to be an Iommi solo record, but released under the Black Sabbath name. Hughes brought soul and passion to the heavy riffs, creating a unique mix. However, the tour was troubled. Glenn's voice was affected by drugs and a broken nose from a backstage fight. Fans could see he wasn't at his best. Despite this, his time with Iommi marked an important chapter. It reminded Glenn that he still had a place in the world of heavy rock. Though his stint in Sabbath was short, it became a stepping stone toward recovery. The experience showed him that his voice was still powerful, if only he could fight his demons. By the early 1990s, Glenn Hughes knew he had to change. Years of drug and alcohol abuse had taken a heavy toll on his body and career. Friends and fellow musicians encouraged him to get help. Finally, in 1991, Hughes became sober. It was the turning point of his life. For the first time in years, his mind was clear, and his voice began to shine again. He recorded solo albums like From Now On, 1994, and Feel, 1995, where his soulful side flourished. Fans were thrilled to hear the voice of rock back in full force. Glenn began touring again, proving that he had not only survived but had grown stronger. His recovery wasn't just personal, it was artistic. Free from addiction, Hughes embraced music with more passion than ever. It marked the rebirth of a legend who had once almost lost everything. In the 2000s and beyond, Glenn Hughes became known as a survivor and a legend. He worked with bands like Black Country Communion and the Dead Daisies, showing new generations what true rock vocals sound like. His live shows were electrifying, with fans in awe of his ability to hit high notes even in his 70s. Hughes often said that music gave him purpose and that sobriety saved his life. Today he is celebrated as the voice of rock, a title he truly deserves. From the small town of Cannock to the world's biggest stages, Glenn's journey has been filled with triumphs, struggles, and comebacks. His story proves that talent, resilience, and soul can outlast even the darkest moments. Glenn Hughes isn't just a singer, he is living proof that music can heal, inspire, and keep the fire burning forever.